76th anniversary of the Leyte landing, October 20th of 1944. And if you want to know about the landings, look at the video that we did a few months back. It's on our MacArthur Memorial channel on YouTube. But today we'll be talking about the illustrious service of the crew and ship USS Nashville. Now, the Nashville was the light cruiser that took MacArthur back to the Philippines in October 20th of 1944, and that's MacArthur on the ship right there. This was a ship that MacArthur used on many landings in World War II, and it kind of created this connection between MacArthur and the ship's crew of the USS Nashville. They used to come here many times over the years. They would have their reunions here, and they donated many materials that you can find throughout the MacArthur Memorial. Unfortunately, most of them are gone now, and we're just left with basically a handful of those men that served so valiantly on the Nashville. Now, the Nashville was a Brooklyn-class cruiser of 1933-1934. The keel was laid down in Camden, New Jersey in 1935. And it was in 1937, in October, that the ship was launched there at Camden. And here you can see a picture of it moving off the dock. It was sponsored by Ann and Mildred Stallman. Now, these were both sisters. They were both from Nashville, and they were chosen to come and christen the ship when it was launched there in 1937. Now, on August 38th, the Nashville made its first big cruise, and that went to Europe. And the first stop was in Cherbourg in France. And you can see on this piece of memorabilia from that trip, this was made up from for the sailors that was like their shellback, their initial cruise that was going over to France. And you can see the stamp on the back of this that shows that this was printed there in Cherbourg. Now, in April of '39, the second cruise that the ship made had some very important people on it, and this was General George C. Marshall and Admiral Ernest King. These were the two gentlemen that would run the Army and Navy in World War II. But in 1939, the Nashville took them down to Brazil, where they had a Pan-American conference on defense, because the war was just about to start in Europe at this time, and so there was a lot of different kind of planning going on throughout the Americas. When the ship gets back, it drops off King and Marshall at Annapolis, Maryland, and then it makes its way for the Panama Canal. It's going to traverse the canal and head to Pearl Harbor, where it will be part of the Pacific Fleet for the next 2 years. It'll do activities over there until about May of 1941, when it got these secret orders to then proceed back through the Panama Canal, back to the East Coast, and it will be in the Atlantic Fleet. And the Nashville is going to, at this time, in mid-1941 up until the winter, it's going to be doing ferrying duty, because they're taking U.S. Marines to Iceland. They're very worried about the Germans trying to make a move on this very important position, strategical position in the middle of the North Atlantic. Now, the ship is doing these kind of activities in December of 1941 when Pearl Harbor attack happens. And once that happens, the ship is then going to go back to the Pacific. Now, in March of 1942, the Nashville gets its orders. It's going to go back again through the Panama Canal, but this time it's escorting the USS Hornet aircraft carrier. Once it gets into the Pacific, it meets up with Admiral William F. Halsey's task force with the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise. And the Enterprise and the Hornet are what the ships that are going to pull off the Doolittle raid in April of 1942. American Army General Jimmy Doolittle put together this force of Army bombers that was then positioned on aircraft carriers and was sent in to strike Tokyo in April of 1942. And the Nashville would serve as an escort for this carrier force, this secret carrier force that went to do this job. You can see the Nashville right here off the port side of the USS Hornet. You can see all of Doolittle's B-25s there, right there. Now, this ship, the Nashville, was used as a screening force, and it went in advance of the aircraft carriers, and that's where it met the Japanese patrol ships that these carrier airplanes and then the Nashville would have to sink But the thing is that those Japanese ships, they knew had already sent word back to Tokyo that they'd run into an American force, so they had to launch that Doolittle raid early. Now, after this Doolittle raid, the Nashville goes into service where it will serve up in the Aleutian Islands. It'll come back down to the South Pacific. It'll serve in the Guadalcanal as well as the New Georgia campaigns. And then in October of 43, it's going to do bombardment missions of Wake Island. And it's not until November of 1943 that the Nashville comes to be part of MacArthur's 7th Fleet in the Southwest Pacific area. Then it gears up for what will be the landings of the 1st Marine Division at Cape Gloucester in December of 43. The Marines will take this island, which is on New Britain. And then in February of 44, the Nashville will be as part of the bombardment force with the 1st Cavalry Division that invades the Admiralty Islands, and they take Los Negros and Manus Island. It's after that that MacArthur chooses the Nashville to be his command ship for the invasions of Hollandia and Atape. And here you can see MacArthur on the ships during this period. And here you can see him where he's boarding on an LCVP and heading towards Atape of the invasion point there. And you can see the Nashville sitting right behind it. Now, in May of 1944, the Nashville was again on an escort run for the Biak invasions, and there it got damaged by a Japanese bomb that was dropped from a plane. You can see the damage right on the side here. Goes back into dry dock, they fix it up real quick, and then it comes back to be part of the Morotai invasion. And there again, it'll serve as the command ship of MacArthur for this Morotai invasion in September of 1944. And here you can see a picture of MacArthur. He's on the deck of the ship with Major General Charles Hall. He's the commander of the 10th Corps that goes in there into Morotai. It was from the communication center of the Nashville that MacArthur first learned that he was going to be given the go-ahead for the return to the Philippines. The Joint Chiefs of Staff had decided on making the move into Leyte in October of 1944. MacArthur again chooses the Nashville to be his command ship for this mission. And you can see right here he's boarding at Hollandia in October 16th, and this is about 11 o'clock in the morning. And here he's shaking hands with the executive officer, Commander Robert Hudson Taylor. And the captain of the ship, Charles E. Coney, is at far left here. The journey was a peaceful one for MacArthur. All the plans were set. It was just a matter of getting there. He strolled the decks frequently, mixed with the officers and crew. He signed cards and short snorters and won the confidence and the respect and pretty much the admiration of the crew. And as he said in his memoirs, the entire journey, there were ships all around them. It was one of the greatest armadas ever assembled. The morning of the 20th, MacArthur was with Captain Coney on the bridge when the shelling began. And it was from the Nashville that MacArthur visited the beaches on the 3 successive days. And it was from the ship that he would command the Leyte operation until about 25 October when he finally took command to the shore. And it was because of that, because MacArthur was on the ship, that the Nashville would not take part in that great battle of the Battle of Leyte Gulf. But the crucible of the USS Nashville was just about to begin. Now, this is one of my favorite pieces in the MacArthur Memorial, and this is the scale model of the USS Nashville. It was made by crewman Thomas Chiuchi, and he used to live in Norfolk, and he would come here all the time with the reunions and the Nashville Association. He's gone now, but he built this by hand, crafted it himself. It's not a kit. You can see that it bristles with the 15 6-inch guns, the 8 5-inch guns, your 8 anti-aircraft mounts. It had the 2 scout planes, and it really is a striking ship model. In December of 1944, the Nashville took part in the Mindoro invasion, which was going to happen on the 15th of December. Now, en route to Mindoro on the 13th of December, the ship was rounding the coast of Negros. And that's when a kamikaze came out of the sky, and it came through the clouds, heading right across the stern of the ship. Now, sailors on the ship saw it and said it was heading right for the superstructure of the ship. and it had a bomb under each wing. The thing is as it came in from the stern, it hit one of the aft guns, one of the wings did, and it cartwheeled into one of these 5-inch guns here. Now when it cartwheeled into there, one of the bombs under the wing exploded, but the other one pitched across and exploded about 10 feet above the starboard side. And so then you have explosions on both sides of the ship. The gasoline from the plane is all over, and basically amidships just turns into a fireball. There was 133 crewmen killed in that kamikaze attack. There's over 190 that were wounded during that attack. You got to think, this is a ship of maybe 500 people. These guys had interacted with each other for years through all their daily activities. That's half of the ship's crew that is either dead or injured, and you would have known many that had died in that. The ship was able to keep underway. It makes its way back to California. When it gets there, they already know what the ship needs to refurbish all these areas, and all the equipment's ready to go. The ship is done and finished and back in Philippine waters by June of 1945. It takes part in the Borneo invasions, but it will never be MacArthur's command ship again. But the bond that had been forged between MacArthur and that ship had been made already. And in 1960, in January 1960, that bond was basically cemented forever. Now, every year on January 26th, they would have MacArthur's birthday. And all the former officers from Southwest Pacific area would gather at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. And they would have this party for MacArthur, and they would celebrate the time in Southwest Pacific area as well as MacArthur's birthday. Now in 1960, Admiral Thomas Kinkaid came, and he was the 7th Fleet Commander for MacArthur's Southwest Pacific area. And Kinkaid brought a very special gift with him, and this was the former flag of the USS Nashville. And he presented it as a gift, a birthday gift to MacArthur from the U.S. Navy. And MacArthur showed great emotion when he accepted this. And when he died in 1964 and sent all of his collections to the MacArthur Memorial in the city of Norfolk, the flag of the Nashville was in that collection. It is hung in our museum for the past 56 years as one of the mainstays of our collection here at the MacArthur Memorial. We hope you've enjoyed this talk about the USS Nashville, and as always, come visit us at www.macarthurmemorial.org or come visit us in Norfolk.